Welcome to the Big Life Podcast. Neal Oates Jr. here, Robin Lewis. You ready to have some fun, sir?
Man, I've been looking forward to this one.
I know you have. And so I'm going to preface this episode, this show, by saying, ladies and gentlemen, against my better judgment, I have allowed Robin to challenge me. I've allowed Robin to coerce me into discussing my book, The Affluent Negro 7 Principles for Minority Wealth Creation, on this episode. And it is my love for Robin and my appreciation and respect that I gave in. So we don't know how this is going to go. Robin has high expectations, high hopes. He believes in me at times more than I believe in myself. So, Robin, I'm going to let you take this away and we're going to see what happens on this episode of The Big Life.
Thank you, Neal. And yes, I appreciate it. And to our listeners, I've read some of the manuscript from the book, and Neal has a book that is coming out here very soon, and Neal will give some of that information when we get there. But we can't be adding value to you on this show and Neal have a book come out. I'm sorry, Neal. We can't do that and not talk about it, because these are principles that are to help us live the big life. That's really what it's about, right? 7 principles for minority wealth creation. And so, Neal, I appreciate you taking the time. And also, as you can appreciate, folks, when you're putting yourself out there in this world, you don't want to come across as like being self-serving, like you're doing this to serve, like Neal is doing this to serve himself. So I did have to twist his arm because he wanted to not come across that way, right? He's written a book. He wants people to read it, but he doesn't want for you to feel like obligation or feel like he's doing this so that you can read his book. And so that's why he needed just a little prodding, because both he and I can speak for myself on this. He's obviously written the book. I'm sure he wouldn't have written the book if he didn't think he was going to benefit others. I can tell you, I know Neal. I see him, I see his life, and I've seen much of the book, and I've already pre-ordered my copy. I'm actually sorry I don't actually have it here with me so I could hold it up as well, but it's coming. But I can tell you that the information that's in there will benefit you. And so, Neal, I want to just start, by the way, if you would allow me just to ask a few questions today. I wrote some questions down for you. Like, I want to start, first of all, with the title. Like, that I think that's a kind of edgy title, The Affluent Negroes, 7 Principles for Minority Wealth Creations. Tell me a little bit about that title, and does it bother you that maybe somebody who doesn't consider themselves a Negro, quote unquote, might not even look at your book? Like, tell me a little bit about that title.
Okay, so first of all, the title is very Neal, meaning it is edgy, right? And I think that anyone who knows me, I'm always trying to find a way to get people's attention, make them curious, have them be inquisitive, and then maybe challenge, my personality, challenge some of the things that we have seen as negative, or that we have uh, our own stereotype or perspective on. And so the entire idea is with the heading or title, The Affluent Negroes. And we use Negroes as an acronym. That's where it really comes from. But then these 7 principles for minority wealth creation, many people, what I realize is they think that minority is only when it comes to race or ethnicity. They aren't thinking gender. They aren't thinking economic class. But what I'm really talking about when I say minority wealth creation, it's up here. Many of us think like the minority, not the majority when it comes to success. And so the 7 principles here, yes, the title is meant to catch people's attention. Do I believe that some people are going to see the title or hear the title and be turned off? Yes, I do. But here's what I also know. I know that what I believe in, that there are some times when if you try to be everything to everyone, you'll end up being nothing to no one. Right. And so that is a risk that we have to take. And it's one that this was not the original title, Robin. My original title was a lot softer. My original title was one that could be more received by the masses. My publisher, some friends, they came and said, Neal, but that's not you. You need to be authentic to who you are, the message that you want to communicate. And so we settled on the Affluent Negroes. And there has been some mixed reviews coming from the audience when we did the book launch. But with everything, I did have to temper and prepare myself for the feedback for those that are close to me. But when they read the title or hear the title, they form a different idea, different picture of me. But we've been prepared for that. And that did take some soul searching, some heart searching to make sure that we were prepared for both sides of it. So some are like, Neal, I can't wait to read it just because of the title. And then I have some who are saying, I'll never read it just because of the title.
Interesting. Really? So it's already causing controversy. Wow. I like that. So, okay, I hear it. No, and there's a lot to unpack there. So I have to be careful that I don't try to dig too deep into this, because obviously we want people to read the book, right? We're not gonna unfold the whole book in one little setting here. But 7 principles for minority wealth creation. So you expanded a little bit about what minorities, not just the color of your skin or the race or whatever, but it's a whole. It's even in your thinking. If I understood you correctly, we can think in a scarcity way, in a much
Absolutely.
lower way than what our potential really is. So, can you just kind of give a highlight of these principles? Like, what is?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking, Robin. So the principles are coming from the acronym Negroes, but really, and here's what I do want to just go ahead and say to the audience. The 7 principles are Bible-based principles. And now that is not a new thing. We find many biblically or biblical principles in secular works, but I let people know right up front. These are 7 biblical principles for wealth creation. And so, in saying that, I want to make sure that the audience is asking, or when they ask, well, how do we know that these principles are going to work? Well, because the foundation in which they're laid, the foundation that they're coming from, is what I consider the most solid foundation that there could be. But the N is for network strategically, right? And we'll talk about how to network, what a strategic networking or a strategic network looks like. So, network strategically, educate yourself, generate wealth through entrepreneurship, reinforce resilience, own it all, excel everywhere, and then serve others, right? And so these principles are what I believe that in my growth, in my wealth creation, in those that I look at and look up to, there are some things that are just common across the board. So the principles are very similar to those that you might find in Think and Grow Rich. The principles are things that we might find in other secular books like The Text by Grant Cardone. But now I'm just framing it in a way and packaging it in a way, speaking to a very specific audience. And that audience is not about race or color. It's really, if you ever felt like a minority in any situation, here's how we can create this thing called wealth.
I love that. So you're building this upon what you consider to be principles, that are foundational, right? These are truths that are applicable, no matter who, no matter where, no matter when. Am I understanding that correctly?
So, absolutely. That's why we didn't call it the 7 secrets, right? That's why we didn't say the 7 fads, because the beauty is that just like the law of gravity or any other law that is concrete, there are principles like here's what I heard many years ago is that gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it or not, right? It's still going to be true. Principles, they do not care what your upbringing is, what your color is. They don't care which language you speak. If you operate and execute the principle, then things must work, right? This where you and I, we go back to the law of the harvest. You reap what you sow. It doesn't say if you are Caucasian and you reap this, you're going to sow this. If you are under the age of 30, if you reap this, you're going to sow this. It says the principle, this law is that if you reap, you're going to sow, or sorry, you reap what you sow. And so here's why that's so important. That's a principle. It doesn't change. It hasn't changed. And it's been true. It's been tested. And I think that's what makes this one of the reasons why it's relevant. I think that we have to get back to understanding what laws, what principles are versus what secrets and fads and get rich quick schemes or tactics are, so that we can get a better foundation. Because I do believe that people want to do better. I believe that we as individuals, we want to grow, we want to improve, we want to create and generate wealth. We just follow the wrong things. We don't have that solid foundation of principles that have stood the test of time and that have proven themselves to be true.
So Neal, it's funny. I'm glad you talked about the word relevance. So I'm stating something that I think I know is obvious because I know you, but I want you to talk a little bit about this. How has this been relevant? What you have shared in this book, how has it been relevant in your life?
So this book is so first, the book came about because I saw where I am. And I even mentioned this in the book, that when I look around, I consider myself the exception, right? There are environments that we were in where I would look around and I'm like, well, why are we on a higher plane? Not better, but just on a higher plane than those who were in the same situation. And I found that my parents were executing a handful of principles that were different than those of the families and the friends around us. And so then I considered looking at, as I became an adult, as I became a husband and a father, these principles still were reigning true. And so I was saying, well, if I really care about people, it's one thing for me to elevate and for me to be here, but how can I break down in simple English, in simple vocabulary and terms, what helped us arrive? What helped those that I look up to accomplish goals and achieve their dreams? And that's why it was so important for me to say, here's what I'm doing. Because Robin, you know this, the challenge for me was, if I put it in here, I better be living by it. If I put it in here, I better be able to embody and show through real world that I am this person, that I am living the affluent Negro lifestyle, that I better network strategically. I better be someone who's educating myself, that I'm generating wealth through entrepreneurship, that I really am reinforcing resilience. And so think about it. We mentioned this in a few of the episodes on the Big Life podcast, talking about resilience, the flood that wiped out our house. I think that was one of those things that if I don't have that flood, I can't understand and write and pen what it means to be resilient. We don't have the depth of our relationship if, as the water is rising, I'm calling you on the phone, Robin, water's coming in the house. What do I do? Right? When do I need to make this claim? Do I need to wait? Right? And so there are things in here that I can write because I have firsthand experience, and you've got to witness a lot of that. And so I know it's going to help because it has helped me. Right? And I believe that I am the exception in my environment, but I am not special. And so that's why, that's the purpose behind the book. I want to see the tide rise so that all ships rise as well.
Wow. I like that. Neal, can we just like pause? And there's something I don't want to, I don't want to miss giving our listeners the opportunity. You're a busy guy, right? And I won't start to mention all the stuff that you are leading and you are doing. You're a difference maker, right? Mr. World renowned. right? You
Hold on,
encourage
wait,
no,
Robin.
let me finish first. Let me finish first. You encourage people to live that way, and you live that way, right? That's why I'm saying what I'm saying here. And yet you found the time and the wherewithal and the motivation to write a book. And maybe there are people out there that are listening today that feel like they have a book in them, or maybe they have been encouraged to write a book and they haven't. Can you just talk about that process for a little bit, Neal? I'm very impressed by what you have done, by the way, and because you've come to me, we've met sometimes, and you've said, Robin, I'm going to do this by this, and sure enough, you did that. I'm talking about writing, that you're going to write, and this was a process that you went through. So help our listeners, and just let's just take a little while and talk about that whole process for the benefit of whom might be thinking of doing it, or who never, like me, never gave thought to it, but now maybe they are giving thought to it now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. But first, I must say, every time I hear my social media handle, like Mr. World Renowned, I'm like, man, am I arrogant or am I confident? And so when you say it to me, I'm like, ooh, I sort of cringe. But then you say, but you're living this way. And it really is meant to encourage, just like this book is meant to encourage everyone that reads it or even hears about it. But the process, here's what I will say: the process, one, that is nothing more than just documenting what I believe, documenting my life, what I've lived through. And so the first part of the process is believing that it was possible. And so that belief came from years ago. I said, I want to be a world renowned author, speaker, and elite broker. This is one of those mantras that I just repeat. And I've probably been repeating that for about 8 or 9 years. That in my affirmations, I say, I am a world renowned author, speaker, and elite broker. The broker part, real estate piece, we had that. The speaker piece and the teacher, we've been getting awards, recognition, doing booking venues and gigs and doing some good stuff. The author piece, I wrote a small little booklet a few years ago, and I thought that was it. And I said, okay, this is good enough, because it came from in here. This goal of being a published author came from in here, not knowing why. And so I thought that I had fulfilled that piece, but the drive, that nudge, hey, you're supposed to be an author, you're supposed to be an author. And so the process was really, how can I, in everything that I'm doing, how can I intentionally carve out time to take what's here and here and put it on paper? And so my very first step was to find someone who had already done it, right? Because I had no idea about the process. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know where to begin. So I went, saw an author that I liked, looked at the book, and the very first thing I did was look to see who the publisher was. And so I'm going to give a shout out to Transcendent Publishing. And I'll even tell you all who I was looking at. I was looking at Myron Golden. I was looking at Myron Golden. I like who he is, what he does, how he operates. I purchased his book, looked at that, and I'm like, well, let me see if Transcendent Publishing, like, if they're still around. And not only are they still around, but they give you, these are the steps to take before you even speak to us. Write this, get this many words, make sure that you share it with friends, family, people who are going to even consider or give you feedback on whether it's a good book or not. So that's really the process. This right here, create time blocks in my schedule where I'm intentionally sitting down in front of my computer or on my phone, just typing into one of my Google Drive documents, my Google Docs. And then the hard part of the process was sharing that manuscript with someone who is a reader, who educates themselves like Robin Lewis, because now I have to put myself out there. I have to make myself vulnerable and give it to Robin. And while we talk about, feedback and criticism, none of us like feedback or criticism, if we're being honest, but we definitely are wary of receiving criticism and critiques from our friends, right? The people who really know us. And when I undertook this work, it was one of those things where I said, well, okay, let me let someone who doesn't know me read it, because they can say it's a good book. Robin would say it's a true book, right? Or it's not in alignment with who he is or who I am. And so that was a part of it. But here's what I will tell you: the most important part of this was having a support team around me, making sure that I did keep my word to Robin when I said, I'm going to do this by this date. I will have you the outline, the title. I will have the first 3 chapters to you. I'll make sure that the 30,000 words are delivered to you by this date. And so having that support team, people who are saying, I've read it, it's good, keep going. Or have you thought about changing these little pieces even before it went to the publisher? I think those were some of the things that kept me going, because Neal would have talked himself out of it before I even sat down and typed the first word.
I remember you saying that to me once, not that you would talk yourself out of it, but that you were, as you got to the point now where you're actually, this is coming together and you're getting ready now to put this out there, that you were a little fearful. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, and fearful is a big word, and it is the right word, right? Because I am one of those people, one, I still deal with imposter syndrome, right? No matter how good I am, I still believe that this is going to be the best that I look, right? On this cover, I look and I ask myself, am I that guy today? Am I someone who's living this out? When someone reads this and then they see me, meet me, listen to the Big Life podcast, they're going to say, he really is that guy. And so the fear came in and continues even as we're recording this. You know, you had to, Neal, we need to promote, we need to talk about, we need to discuss this. It's a good thing. The fear comes in, what if I'm not that good? What if I'm not that person? What if I fail? And then, as Jim Rohn would say, I get into the language of the poor, playing the what if game. And so that's where the fear comes in. Me not knowing if I'm going to be accepted or rejected, right? Because here's when I had a list of people, Robin, that I knew were going to support me in this book launch. 100% knew it. Guess what? We don't know anything, because out of my 38 people, 12 people came on and supported me. There was a list of people that I had question marks by. The majority of the people that I had question marks by have been my biggest cheerleaders, right? And so now I find myself like, well, what is the conversation going to be like when I see that person that I thought was going to support me that hasn't supported me? Did they reject my work, or are they rejecting Neal, the friend, the person, the leader? Or have they not even been exposed to it? Do they not know how to support? And so all of that's going on in here. And guess what? I'm such a good salesman. I've sold myself on the idea that I'm a loser, I'm a fraud, that people don't like me. They saw the title of the book and they're like, he's not an affluent Negro. What does he know about wealth creation? And so that's where the fear comes in. And so I'm having to battle that demon every day and try to drive fear in that corner.
Yeah, wow. I appreciate your transparency there, and there is a, I don't know, folks, our listeners. I don't know how many of you have written a book or attempted to write a book or thinking about writing a book, but that in and of itself is is definitely putting yourself out there. I think about a few things, Neal. I think about our formula for success that we talk about, the F in the big life, right? It's test, and that means you're stepping out. You're putting yourself out there. And the only way that you're going to grow is to get out of the comfort zone. And that's what I hear you saying. And so you are out of the comfort zone, because yes, you're now putting yourself out
I'm
there.
so far out of the comfort zone, I don't even remember what the comfort zone looks like, right? I'm like, I think it was back there somewhere. So I will say that, and this is where I cannot stress enough to our audience, to the listeners, that having someone that is willing to encourage you to go outside your comfort zone is one thing. but someone who will walk with you while you're outside. And so here's the beauty of this. So Robin and I, we get to have conversations, and we're having a lot of conversations. And this is a blessing, because whether it's from the podcast or he and I just having conversations about ideas and things that are happening, he gave me some feedback on some items with the book launch and the promotion. But it's one thing when someone says, yes, go be great, we'll be back here cheering you on. It's something totally different when you have someone who's like, come on, let's go. Yes, I know you're outside of your comfort zone. I don't have to, like, I can just be your support, but I'm going to be right here with you as you go out here. So for me, having someone that's right here beside me, and I do have a great support team, whether it's going to be my wife, friends, the publisher, leaders who I didn't even know I was on their radar, and they're coming, hey, Neal, we're right here with you. Right. And I think that's important. So I want to tell you, Robin, that even you supporting me in this way by giving me this voice on our podcast is a very big deal. But it is seen and it is appreciated.
Yes, sir. And our podcast stays true to adding value to people so that they can be empowered and add value to others. And I firmly believe that those who read your book, The Affluent Negroes, no matter who you are, those who read that book will receive great value to help you to create the life that you want to live. We say around this podcast to help you create the big life. And so I confidently say that. Neal, a couple of things I just want to point out as I heard you talk about them today. One is the B in the big life. You talked about having to believe in yourself, first of all, right? That you believe that you had something inside of you to share, right? So that's a principle, a truth, if you will, that if you want to have the big life, the more that you can develop. And it doesn't mean you don't have the doubt, folks. You heard Neal talk about still having doubt, even as he's going through this process. But it's about playing to the belief part of that, right? The other thing I wanted to just say, I didn't want us to miss this because you're really good at this, Neal. One of the things we were talking about world renowned, and you were saying sometimes when you hear people refer to you that way, it kind of helps. But I think the beautiful thing about what you do with that is that you actually put it out there so in order to keep yourself accountable to that. And folks, I want you to hear that. The reason why Neal is putting that out there, and I see this, is because as he's putting himself out there to me and to the world, to others, then it forces him to do his best to really live up to that. And I don't want our listeners to miss that, Neal, because I know that's a big part of why you do what you do. The other thing that you shared that ties in with the big life, and it's so good. I'm so glad we didn't plan this, but it's the E in the big life, which is talking about legacy, talking about evidence by the impact that you have on others. And you talked earlier about your parents and what they had, the principles that they had lived and shared, and therefore poured into you, transferred into you. So you're the evidence of the principles that they lived. And that's a big part of living the big life. And Neal, I want to ask you, you've shared a little bit about this already, but if you could answer the question, who should buy your book and why? How would you respond to that?
So this book was written for a very specific but broad audience at the same time. And so even with the title, The Affluent Negro, 7 Principles for Minority Wealth Creation, this book is really written for anyone who wants more out of life, who wants to live a bigger life, right? So the big life, those who want to actually accomplish a dream and to make an impact that is going to cause a ripple effect for generations. And so I will be transparent. When we talk about 7 principles for minority wealth creation, the idea of wealth, typically we think finances, right? We think of money. We think of something that can go into our account. But I believe that living a wealthy life is living a big life. It's one that is a life of impact, one that has the potential to impact generations. And if we're going to truly impact generations, then we must say, I'm responsible for this thing that I'm doing right now, this one dressed, not rehearsal, but live thing called life. So for me, when I'm thinking about who the audience, who the reader is, it's going to be someone who wants more, someone who wants to live a life of abundance. It is going to be for those who might be doubting themselves and saying, am I capable of living an affluent life? Am I capable of living an abundant life? Am I capable of living a big life? And then it's also for those business owners. Now, in here, I do mention minority business owners. And the reason minority is even in the title is I want to give a voice and speak to a targeted audience who might feel overlooked, undeserving, or forgotten about. So if you are a minority business owner specifically, get the book, right? If you are a business owner who's not a minority, and this is what I say very early in the book, if you are not a minority, you are the unintended example for us to follow, right? And I'm giving kudos in a way because what we know is that those who might not identify as any type of minority, they are quicker to grab hold of information and execute and reap the rewards of the seeds that they sowed long ago, right? So oftentimes educating themselves, that's just part of it. Having networks that are strategic, that is the norm. Generating wealth through entrepreneurship, being resilient, making sure they serve others. And so if you are not a minority, thank you for setting an example for us to follow. And I say that very early in the book. And they were like, well, Neal, why would you say that? Well, as we were going through the publishing process, my proofreader, she was going through the book and she sent me a message. So I'm having a lot of conversation with them, Robin. And I think this is important. As she goes through the first introduction, she sends me a message and she's like, Neal, thank you so much for what you did in the introduction. I am a single mom who is Caucasian and I have X number of kids. What you said to me now in the introduction makes me have to read the rest of the book. And this is coming from someone whose job is to go through and proof. But then when she got to the end of the book, she said, she's just a proofreader for the publisher. Neal, I'm already implementing some of the principles, and in the 2 weeks that I've been going through the book, I've already seen positive change because of me implementing 2 or 3 of the principles.
Wow.
Right. And so for me to get that from someone who is not a minority and whose job was to read the book to make sure I don't have errors to impact her life and her kids' lives in a positive way in the matter of 2 weeks, that gave me some confidence that we were on to something. So
Yes.
it is for those who want to have more, do more, be more, who believe that more is possible, those that might feel as if they've been overlooked, forgotten about. But then it's really for those who want to have an affluent lifestyle, who want to know that it's possible for them.
Right on. So much comes to my mind. What a great story. Thank you for sharing that. And I think of one of my favorite movies. It's Rudy. Have you seen the movie Rudy?
Of
So you,
course. Let's
so
go,
you,
sir. Come on.
so you know Rudy was a minority, because the reason that I consider him a minority is because he didn't have that much talent. There was a whole lot more talent on that team. And so as you say what you say, I think there's not one of us who don't have some little way, shape, or form that we might be not right there. There's something that we need that we don't have, that would make us a little bit, that we could possibly see ourselves as a little bit lesser. And Rudy, I love the way that he overcame and was able to have his time of fame. Just as importantly, I think of the gentleman, I wish I knew the actor's name, but he was the janitor at the school, and gave Rudy a place to rest at night, and he encouraged him and supported him. I remember the look on his face when Rudy had his moment, the look of satisfaction, pride, redemption. And that's what I kind of hear you saying. So you're writing this book and you're that janitor looking to help people to rise and achieve and live the big life. And yeah, and it's beautiful, sir. I want for you to give the opportunity to our listeners now Like, is there still some pre-sale thing going on? When is the book coming out? Where can they go get the book? Let's give them some concrete stuff now. And folks, I want to encourage you. I'm saying it to you. You're here listening to us, and we appreciate that, by the way. And I can confidently tell you that this is going to add value to your life. So I encourage you to pick up a copy and not just pick it up, but start reading the book. But Neal, you got to tell us how.
Okay, so the one place and the best place is going to be theaffluentnegroes.com. And that is Negroes plural. So theaffluentnegroes.com is going to be the best place to get the book. And here's
Wait,
what
wait, hold up that book again. Let's see that picture, man. My goodness, look at that dude dressed up. He looks sharp.
Robin, don't do this, sir. Theaffluentnegroes.com. And here's what I will tell you is that the team and I, we were intentional about how we crafted the site, the book itself. So you're not just getting a book. So I know that pre-sales will be over by the time this episode comes out, but that should not be a concern because I'm always thinking about how can I add more value. So when you go to theaffluentnegroes.com, there's going to be a lot of bonus material there. So not only will you be able to order the book, but you will be able to have access to different additional resources, whether it's going to be videos, articles, one-on-one recordings that I have done for individuals that might not even purchase the book, posted videos and done some additional trainings about how to execute and implement these 7 principles. So even though it's going to be after the pre-sale, if you go to theaffluentnegroes.com, you'll be able to look at the website. You'll have a lot of information there. Of course, at Robin's spurring, I'm going to also encourage you all to purchase a copy of the book. And after you read it, I want your feedback. I really do believe that this process could help me more than it helps you, because you all have heard in my transparency, in my goal to be an example of an affluent Negro, that there are some challenges that I put on myself. Make sure that I am the person that Robin said looks good on the cover of that book. But I'm also growing, learning, receiving the critiques, receiving the guidance, because this is the first book, right? And I say first because Robin and I have had discussions. He's like, Neal, is there a second? And I'm like, I think there might be, now that I understand the process and I see what I've learned about myself in doing that. So the best way, theaffluentnegroes.com, you go there, purchase your copy of the book. All of the information will be there, some bonus material. And then we are going to have some events coming up in the very near future that you will also see Robin be a part of. The Black Affluence Summit. We're also going to have the Affluence in Action workshop, things coming there. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
I am excited too. And to our listeners, we do what we do to add value to you, to empower you so that you can add value and empower others. And I believe that as we've had this discussion today, you've received value, you've heard things that you too can go out and apply, that actually are a part of the Big Life acronym and will go a long way towards you living the big life. One of the things that we encourage all of our listeners to do is to become readers and to develop the habit of reading every day. And this is just an option for you that we believe, if you take the time to do it, is going to go a long way towards you moving forward to your dreams and to achieving the goals that you have for your life. And so, Neal, the actual book, is it okay to say when it's coming out?
Yes. So the book is going to be coming out February 17th. So just on that there, I do want to let you all know that even when you have doubts and you have questions, that God will drop in little reminders. We call them God winks, coming from a book that my book club is reading, When God Winks. So this is the book that we are currently reading, When God Winks, How the Power of Coincidence Guides Your Life by Squire Rushnell. So this is what we're reading. And so the book is coming out February 10th. And the reason that's important is because when the publisher submitted it to all of the places she submitted, she had to choose a date for it to be published. Well, February 17th is wife's birthday. Right. And she did not know that. And so when I look at the information and it says published date, February 17th, it was just that little reminder for me that God cares, that God sees even the smallest detail in my life, and it's important. So now I look at February 17th as a way for me to, yes, put something out to the world, but really for it to be on my wife's birthday is extra special for me because now I'm birthing this, giving this on my favorite person's birthday. And so February 17th is going to be an important day. It's going to be a big day. And regardless of what the book does, we have a built-in celebration because we're going to celebrate wife. We'll celebrate the book. And so now all of you who know that February 17th is not only the day that the Affluent Negroes is going to be available, it's also my wife's birthday. So you all can send me a gift and I'll make sure that she gets it.
And sir, I'm so glad to hear that you shared that, because a principle for our listeners to catch here. We talked about it before on another episode, and Neal spoke about stepping out there, right? It's test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. But here's the thing that we said is that most ideas are not even given the opportunity to be alive, to live beyond that first day, because we don't test, we don't step out. And you think about that, this what an awesome celebration that's going to happen on February the 17th. That wouldn't have happened if Neal didn't take that first step. And that's what we want to encourage you to take that step. Be encouraged by Neal writing this book, if nothing else, for you to step out and do whatever it is, whatever thought or idea, especially from the framework that he talked about, that it's a God thing, right? And most the ideas that we have come from above. That is the reality. But
Yep.
it takes somebody who's going to step out and take that step. And stepping out doesn't mean he didn't step out today. February 17th wasn't the first step. But because he took the first step months or years ago, it has come now to where it's going to affect his family. It's going to affect you and I that are listening to this today, and any and everyone who reads the book, and all of those that are a part of his sphere of influence. And that's what you have before you as you get these ideas. Neal, thank you for going along with me, sir. I think this has been wonderful for our listeners to just kind of hear a little bit about this process and how this relates to them living into their big life, and then also giving them a resource that can help support them on their journey. Congratulations to you, sir. I'm really proud of you, and I know there's more to come as we go in this direction, and I'm glad to be a part of I'm glad to say that I know Neal Oates Jr.
So not only do you know me, but on the back cover, Robin Lewis, international speaker, trainer, and coach. Right here, Robin Lewis's name. So and I know we're about to close, but when the publisher asked for back cover and some people and some information and reviews, you were the first one to come to my mind. And so I want people to know, when I talk about network strategically, right? That's evidenced by this right here. Right? Robin and I, we are not together by accident. And it's not by our doing either. So Robin said these great ideas, these great happenings come from above. But without Robin, and I will say this, without Robin, this work right here is lacking. Without other people that I have networked with strategically, I am not who I am. So I know you'll hear this, you'll read this, you'll get to that back cover, and you'll say, wait, did Robin and Neal have this thing planned out? Was this all some elaborate ploy? No, it's just really us working to live out what we really believe. And so that there is a congruence there, and people don't have to wonder, is that really who they are? Do they really believe what they say? So when I think of this and I start thinking of February 17th, and then I think of the relationship that Robin and I have, whether it's the networking part or the reinforcing resilience part when our house floods and he's my phone call, right? Dude, thank you.
Amen.
Thank you for allowing me to do this on our platform. It was nerve wracking for me, me continuing, even though we're friends and our audience tunes in and listens, it's still a little, it's just nerve wracking. And so even putting myself out there after I've put myself out there, every time we're doing it is new, is fun and exciting and challenging all at the same time.
Amen. And see, the beautiful thing about it, sir, is that, like the lady that gave you that feedback about how it's already touched her life. I think that's the encouragement that you'll receive, because this is going to make an impact in the lives of others that will be generational. That impact that you're making on that lady as a single mom, and then therefore the resulting effect that will happen on her kids because of what you wrote. If nothing else, if nobody else gets it, it's already a win. And that's what it's about. And I'm really proud of you, sir. I believe all of us have something within us that needs to come out. And that's my encouragement to our listeners as you see it unfold with Neal. I wish we had more time actually to get more of the story of Neal, because there's more to the story. Right? There's more to the story before he wrote this book. And I wish we had the time. And maybe over time you'll get to know Neal, you'll get to know us as you stick around. And so I just want to encourage you to stick around. We're really here for you and here to provide value for you. And we are practitioners learning and growing and applying these principles to our lives on a daily basis along with you. So, sir,
Yeah.
you want to close us out or anything you want to add before we go?
So if you all want more of the story of Neal, make sure you pick up the book, because I did pour myself and some of my stories in there. You'll find out, or you'll read about some resilience, some situations that required me to have resilience that almost broke me, and where the speaker, the confident guy, almost never existed. Right. And so that's where I'll leave that there. But it's some good stuff in there because it's true, honest, transparent stuff. But here's what Robin and I want to do. We want to make sure that you are receiving value from this podcast, the Big Life Podcast. And one way that we can do that is by getting your feedback. We love hearing from you, letting us know what you like, what you don't like, giving us show or episode ideas, because we really are here for you. So it doesn't matter the platform. Tap in, chime in, let us know what your thoughts are. Show your appreciation, because we appreciate you. And then make sure you share this with someone that you believe would benefit either from this episode or from the Big Life Podcast itself. That's what we are about. Not only impacting you, but impacting those that you have an impact on and influence with. So we would love for you to subscribe, comment, share, all of those. But most importantly, we want to remind you that we love you, God loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And until the next time we see you or you see us, we're right there with you. Take care, family. Bye.